questions in your life by getting away, being quiet before God, and just listening. And listening for God. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out on a really huge, important part about God. What's the second thing that I check out and realize about God in this, or about Jesus in this passage? All right? These reminders, right? It's a reminder. Yeah, prayer is important. Okay, prayer is important. Well, are we doing it? If I were to ask you guys today, right here, you know what? My prayer life is exactly what God wants it to be. How many of us would raise our hands? Probably not many of us, if any of us. It's a great reminder to us, man. Jesus prayed that we got to pray also. The next reminder of this, and I love this because it makes a big deal about Jesus, makes a huge deal about Jesus, and that's this, right? We've got to remember that in this passage, again, Jesus is affirming to you and to me and to the disciples that Jesus is God on earth. Jesus is God on earth. Again, we ask you, who in the world can walk on water? Well, not many of us. Not many. Why? Because we can't defy the laws of nature that God has put in place for us, and even for our protection. God has put those in place for us, and we can't defy those outside of God intervening and helping us defy those. We can't do that. Yet Jesus regularly does these amazing acts, these miracles, these things that defy nature, defy gravity, and he does these regularly. Why? Because Jesus is God on earth. He has the power of God in him, yet he is still man on earth. How in the world do you explain it? You can't explain it. It's the craziest phenomenon that you'll ever realize in your entire life. We can't explain it, but we've got to buy into it to believe and trust in who God is and in who Jesus is, and to believe in that promise that the Messiah, Jesus Christ, is that pathway to salvation. We've got to buy into that Jesus was God on earth, yet still had that human form, and that he was still able to be tempted, that he was still tempted, yet did not give in to any temptation, so that he can be an advocate on our behalf. He can be an advocate on our behalf. Jesus is God here on earth, and I love this passage in Isaiah chapter 12, verse 2. Before I get there, let's think about this for a minute, right? Let's think about this for a minute. Actually, Job 37:38. We can't begin to separate Jesus' humanity from how powerful and how awesome God is in his life and how he is a deity. And if Jesus is deity, what does John 1:1 say about Jesus? Someone hollered out, what does John 1:1 say about Jesus? That he's what? That he's God. That in the beginning was the what? The Word, right? And the Word was what? It was with God. The Word was who? God. Okay, and who is the Word? Right, okay, good. A little confusion there. You made it through it, okay. All right, great job. Okay, so if Jesus is God, look at the power that God look at the power that God holds in the palm of his hand as he's talking to Job, right? There's a situation brewing here. And you get this if you've ever been a boss of somebody, right? I bet this has happened to Kelly before. Because Kelly's a really nice guy, right? Was Kelly a nice guy? Kelly's a nice guy. He says no. Oh my goodness, Kelly. Kelly is a nice guy. A super nice guy. And I bet he's really nice to his employees. I bet he's super nice to employees. But I bet there's a time where he has to pull out the boss card and say, get to work. I bet there's those times. And if there's not those times, then that's an awesome place to work. Anyways, all right. There's probably those times you got to do that. That's what God is doing here to Job. He said, all right, Job, enough whining. Enough of this stuff. Your buddies are idiots. They're not telling you the things you need to say and that you need to do. All right? Here's the God card. Time to pay up. Time to pay attention. Check this out, what God says here to Job. And I love this. It's powerful. It says, hear this, O Job. Stop and consider the wondrous works of God. Do you know how God lays his command upon them and causes the lightning of his cloud to shine? Do you know how to do that? Do you know the balancings of the clouds? The wondrous works of him who is perfect in knowledge? Verse 18 and 37. Can you, like him, spread out the skies? Can you do that? All right. Verse 22, out of the north comes golden splendor. God is clothed with awesome majesty. The Almighty, we cannot find him. He's great in power, justice, and abundant righteousness. He will not violate. Chapter 38, verse 1, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, there's a whirlwind. Imagine that, Maybe eyes, and a mouth coming out saying, Job, check this out, coming up. Were you there when I laid the foundations of the earth? Were you, Job? Were you there? Forgot. Were you there? You know, Jesus is wondering this, right? No, God's wondering this, right? No. Who determined its measurement? Surely you know. Surely you know this. Verse 8, who shut the sea door? Who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? Who did that? Verse 17, have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the gates of the deep darkness? Verse 31, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? Can you do that? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds that a flood of waters may cover you? Can you send forth lightnings that they may go and say to you, here we are. Here we are. All right, here I am. All right, here we go. Can you do that, Job? Can you do that? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts or given understanding to the mind? You can just imagine Job going, oh God, I get the picture now. You're cool and I'm not. You know, like, you can do these things, God. And God just going on and on. It's like that parent that's going to tell you why they're so much better to you than other parents in the world, you know? And they keep going on and on and on and on. It goes, you know, like the point where it's like, I get it. I get it. Stop already. You know? So that's what God is doing here. He's overemphasized the point that God is great, He's powerful, He's big, He's majestic, and He alone puts the Pleiades together. He hangs the stars. And if He wants to, He can cause the grass to wither, or He can cause the tree to grow. He alone decides whether or not a tree gives fruit or not, or if it's going to become barren. He alone decides if the sands of the desert will ever produce anything. He alone decides if there's going to be waves on a particular day. Like, that's the God, that's the powerful God that you and I serve, and that's the power that Jesus wielded while He was here on earth. And that doesn't make sense, and we don't totally get that, but that's who we serve. The next thing I check out of this passage here in Matthew chapter 14, where Jesus walks on water out to the disciples, and then calms the storm, calms the wind. And the sea is like a glassy, clean surface, is that Jesus is God on earth. And we should never lose sight of it, because that is a vital part of who and how we worship. It's an incredibly vital part of who and how we worship. The next thing that I get out of this passage is this. And again, we're just talking about truths about Jesus. Is that our doubts and our fears every time will cause us to sink. Our doubts and our fears will cause us to sink. Guys, when we begin to doubt God, when we begin to doubt the existence of God, when we begin to say things like, there's no one there to help me, there's no one who's my friend, there's no one who's on my side, when we begin to fear and doubt our lives, situations in our lives, we will begin to sink. Look at Peter. The moment he got out of the boat, man, give the guy some credit. Who in the world would have gotten out of the boat here? I mean, legitimately, who in the world would have gotten out of the boat here? There's not one of us that would have gotten out of the boat here. Yeah, bold, brash Peter got out of the boat and walked to Jesus. He walked to show us he was on dry ground. He walked out to Jesus. And then said, he began to notice things. His focus was on Jesus. He was not afraid, and he did not doubt. In the moment his focus turned to everything else around Jesus, but not on Jesus, what happened? He sank. He sank. When we begin to place our focus on everything else around Jesus, and not on Jesus himself, we begin to sink. We'll begin to sink. And Jonah is a perfect illustration. Go back and check out Jonah. Jonah was an idiot. But, right? He began to doubt and fear God. God said, go to Nineveh! Go to Nineveh. These guys need to hear you. They need to hear about me. Go to Nineveh. I'll protect you. Where I send you, what? I will lead you. I will guide you. I will send you out there and protect you till you accomplish my purpose, whatever that purpose is. That's what God does. And so God told him to go there. What did Jonah do? He ran the other way. He got what? He got afraid. And he ran the other way and found himself on a boat where if he had stayed on and hadn't said anything, he'd have killed everybody on the boat. Then he gets thrown overboard and gets to the belly of a whale. Can you sink more than that? Can you get in a situation where you smell a fish? Imagine a fish that eats fish. You know? You ever smelled that? disgusting. Can you sink more than that? And Jonah got to that place in his life. Why? Because he doubted